All right, let's talk about dating in 2021. Folks, welcome to another episode of the Danial Experience. My name is Daniel. I'm the life coach psychology student, always talking about motivation, self-development, growth, all that good stuff, and psychology, wherever it relates to. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about dating. Now, I know I made a podcast episode about this about a month or so ago, but I felt like there were some things that I left untouched that I really wanted to make sure that we all know and that I make sure that I cover. For the longest time, we've had these traditional gender roles, right? Specific things that you expect from a woman and specific things that you expect from a man. These roles might include for a man to be chivalrous, right? Let's say drive over, to pay for the first date, to be the protector, to make more money, to be the breadwinner. There are some expectations with women that she should be very emotional, that she should be great with kids, that she should be very happy to stay home instead of going out and doing a job, right? So we have these certain things. And my first question to people is this: is that societal or is that genetic? Now, largely, if you might think, well, Daniel, I think it's societal. Because ever since just thinking about media, even in the 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s, there's always the depiction of the woman, she's cleaning and cooking and doing all that, and the guy's going out and he's being the breadwinner. Fair enough. Now, folks, we're in a period where it's very interesting, where, let's go back to that. Let's go back to the 50s, 60s, 70s, hell, even 80s. We're in a position where a woman doesn't work. Let's say she stays home to be a housewife, to take care of the kids, or maybe she gets a part-time job somewhere. But number one priority is taking care of the kids and taking care of the home. You're following me? The number one priority of the man is to go out and get the money. Make sure you pay the bills, pay the rent. You go out, you work your ass off Monday through Friday, right? It's tough work, it's not easy. And then the lady takes care of the home, which is tough work. It's not easy by any means. In this situation, if you were to talk to a woman, I would understand that a woman would want to be with someone who makes a lot of money, especially more money than her. Because if she's working part-time, I'm just arbitrary numbers out there, $30,000 a year, I understand why she would want to meet a guy who's working full-time who's making $90,000 a year. It makes sense to me mentally, right? Then you throw a lot of these things in there that are just attractive, and I would argue they're just genetic, and they are preferences. Now, one thing that you notice regularly around women is they want to be with someone who is greater than them. And you notice this with women of all ages. Greater than how, Daniel? They want to be with someone who's smarter than them, who's stronger than them, who's taller than them, who makes more money than them. These are, and even usually if they're older than them, these are very attractive qualities to women. Now, I wouldn't say every single woman, but from the studies that I've looked at, I would feel very confident to say, generally speaking, the majority of women feel this way. I would say 8 out of 10. And I think if you go Google that right now, if you look at peer-reviewed articles, you would find things supporting the very thing that I'm saying. A woman wants to be with a man that is greater than her. Generally speaking, he should be taller than her. I'll tell you this, I have never in my life seen a woman with a man who's dumber than her. I shouldn't say dumber, but less educated. So let's say she has a master's degree, he didn't go to university, shorter than her, and makes less money than her. I have never seen it. I've seen a guy who doesn't go to university but has a business, so he's making a bunch of money, and maybe he's shorter than her, but the money, something pulls through. Or maybe a guy who doesn't make the most amount of money, he matches her for income, but he's taller than her and he's older than her. Certain things there that I find interesting. Now, generally, if you talk to these same women about what it would be like to date someone shorter than you, who makes less money than you, who is less strong than you, a term that you hear a lot is dating down, which is quite fascinating. Like, they look at it as dating down. Like, why would I settle when I can date someone better? Now, before we look at it a certain way, my first thought is, that's great. You should always look to discriminate. And by you discriminating, you're not going to date just any bloke that walks in the door. You want to discriminate, you have your preferences, you have your standards, so you make sure you're dating who you want to date. But it becomes interesting because as a man, if I was dating a young lady who was shorter than me, or who didn't have the same education that I had, or who wasn't as strong as me, I wouldn't look at that as dating down. Arbitrary number, I'm making $130 a year. She's making $50 a year. I wouldn't think I'm dating down or I'm settling if she's a great person and an amazing, lovely person to be around. So I find that's an interesting way to look at it. Why women, I feel like the woman's perspective is, I want to date the best guy possible, which is totally cool. But have you ever thought about what it would be like for the guy to date someone shorter than him, who makes less money than him, who maybe doesn't have as much education as he does? And just what an interesting perspective that is. And for almost any of my guy friends that I've asked, like, Daniel, I really don't care if she's a little taller than me, a little shorter than me. If she's a little older, it really doesn't matter. Now, I do know some men who are a little bit intimidated if the lady makes more money, or if there's a huge discrepancy between education. Let's say one guy has a bachelor's degree and the woman has a PhD. I've definitely met gentlemen like that as well. I myself, I think I'm maybe more with the minority, where I don't think I'd feel intimidated if I was with someone who had a greater degree. Let's say if they had a master's, or if they had a PhD, or if they were making money than I was. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, dude, we're on a team. If we live together and everything that we buy, like if we buy a TV, it's gonna be in our home and we're both gonna use it. I want you to succeed at whatever you're doing. There's no competition. There's no, I want you to succeed as long as you're making less than I am. No, we're on the same team. And if I'm killing it, I'm killing it. And if you're killing it, you're killing it. At the end of the day, either one of us is killing it. And it's helping both of us. And that's what matters. That's in my mind, right? Vice versa, if she's making less than me, but again, she's an incredible person, this is the person who I want to have around me, supportive, all that other great stuff. Okay, so you make less than me. I find that's an interesting way to kind of look at it, right? Because then, now the problem where this gets a little problematic in 2021 is, for the last couple of years, we've been in this position where women are getting in the workforce more. And as that happens, you're going to see them predominantly, if I'm not mistaken, and please Google this, but last I heard of this, it was that women are outnumbering men at universities and colleges, like greatly, and especially in the next 10 to 15 years. I apologize, I did not verify this, I only heard this from one source, but definitely look that up. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that women either are outnumbering men in all educational institutions. This is predominantly looking at America and Canada. If not right now, then easily in the next 10 to 15 years. And now, man, it beats me whatever the heck the reason for that could be. But as these women begin to go into these higher end positions, as these women begin to come out with these master's degrees and PhDs and really start making a lot of money in the $100,000s, $150,000s, I want to ask yourself, if you're a girl, and please be honest with yourself, if you're making $150,000 a year and you still have that mentality of, listen, he doesn't have to make 500 grand, he just has to make more than I do. That's a lot of things women say with height too. They're like, oh, it's height, you don't have to be over 6 feet tall. I'm 5'5", you just have to be taller than me. That's still a preference. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with you saying you want him to be a certain height, him saying he wants you to be a certain weight, him saying he likes blondes, you saying you like dudes with glasses. There's nothing wrong with that. There's preferences. If you couldn't discriminate, then you literally have to sleep with anyone who approaches you because, oh, guy, I can't reject you. No, come on. Like, at what point is discriminating okay? You know what I mean? But what my point here is, if you're a young lady who now has a PhD, you have a very good job, and you're making $150,000 a year, I've heard videos of women going, listen, if you don't at least match my pay or make more money than me, like, that's a huge turnoff. Folks, that's a lot of money. $150,000 a year, that's a lot. Now, what if you're a CEO? What if you're a business owner? And if you're a woman who's making $150,000, now you're looking at a guy who's making $70,000, loves his job, kick ass, his colleagues love him, he's happy in his job. What I've also heard women be like, well, I'm a business owner, you know, I'm disciplined, I can get him to work on himself, I can get him into business. And the idea here was like, man, you can't really accept him at his job. Being an employee, being a high school teacher, making $60K a year. The way that you conceive being with him is changing him. That's another interesting thing about ladies too that I've noticed. When a guy sees a girl, and I'm like this, and I speak to my sister about this quite fairly frequently, is if I see someone, it takes me a couple minutes to see him from afar, to talk to him, to be like, you know what, possibly interested or not interested at all. I take it for what it is. I don't make things up. I don't think about what you could be. I take you for what you are. I think a lot of men do this. They look at what you are presenting them, and they go, I'm interested, or they go, I'm not interested. Here's where women differ. They'll look at a guy, ladies, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel very confident on this, and 9 times out of 10 they go, well, what could he be? Or you have an idea of this guy and this fantasy that he could be. I know he's been to jail 2 or 3 times for assault, but what if I could turn him into a lovely guy and he'd care for me, but he's still a hard guy, so he'd fight for me, but I'd turn him into a law-abiding citizen. So you don't look at what's in front of you. You glance over it, but you focus on what he could be. And in a sense, that's dope. That's amazing because you want someone to grow and to become greater. And you know, I always say you should never be settled with your partner. You should look at their flaws and tell them about it in a respectful way. And you should motivate them to be greater than they are because they could be. And they should do the same for you. But at what point do you get to a level where you say, you know what, I'm looking at you, I'm getting one thing, but I'm thinking about something else. And I'm worried that you're not that thing. And I'm gonna take you and I'm gonna try to change you and I'm trying to push you into this idea that I have of my perfect boyfriend or my perfect husband. And if I just tried enough, if I give you enough love and support and warmth, I could turn you into that. Ladies, am I right or am I right? Seriously. Am I right or am I right? I don't think every woman's big on this, but some of them are very into this idea of helping someone, fixing someone, changing someone to their ways, impacting them. I can change him. I can get through to him. He's rough and he's cold, but he'll warm up to me, which is fair. But unfortunately, that's why sometimes I'm flabbergasted, if you will, when I see a lady approach someone who looks like an unsuitable candidate for a long-term monogamous relationship. How smooth is that? God damn, I am good with words. Right? Isn't that good? All right. Okay, let's go back to it. Right, anyways, she pursues a guy, and I'm looking at him going, I don't know. Looking at his track record, he cheated on his last 2 girlfriends. I don't see it, But hey, hopefully I'm wrong about this. Hopefully he's good. And then the guy goes and does what you expect him to do because you saw the red flags. And I see the girl crying and in tears and she's upset, and I'm going, I don't understand. You went into this, you didn't see what I saw? That wasn't a red flag to you? That wasn't a red flag to you? It was right in front of your face. And then she'd hit you with the, well, I know, but I thought he was different, and I thought if I spent time with him, you thought. No, this doesn't mean to bash on anyone or to say, hey, anyone who doesn't look like the life's in order you shouldn't be with, but it's a really interesting dynamic that we're in with respects to dating. Because if you're a woman who's making a lot of money, and again, women want someone who's greater than them in a lot of ways. And this isn't just me making this up. This is, if you look at studies, women generally will date someone economically either across the hierarchy or above them. And you see this with height is the very same thing as well. They either, again, not every single person, well, Daniel, my brother's, aunt is dating someone who's shorter than her. It's possible. But I would bet my money down, man, 8 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10 times, she's shorter and the guy's taller. It's what it is. So one of the hard things for women now becomes, what do you do if you're a woman who is 6'1", plays basketball, so you're pretty strong, you like to lift, you got a PhD, you're making $200,000 a year. All of a sudden, your pool of potential suitors narrows by quite a bit. And you got to think to yourself, well, why is that? Right? Is that because men are intimidated to be with me? Maybe like a 5'5" guy is looking at me at 6'1", and he's scrawny and he just doesn't want to be with someone like me. Okay, he's not interested, that's whatever. But at what point, am I willing to date someone shorter than me? Am I willing to date someone who's making a little bit less money than me? And it sounds really weird because I feel like women listening to this are going to take away this idea of, so you're saying that the only thing to do is just to settle, is just to date down, to date someone who's shorter than me or makes less money than me. But even that mindset of its own, if that was real, then 8 out of 10 guys would always be quote unquote dating down. How would that make you feel? If a guy felt like, he was just settling for you because you're shorter than him, because you can't lift as much as he can, because you're not making as much money as he can. I guarantee you guys don't think that. I promise you, there's not a single dude I've ever met in my entire life or heard of on video, on podcast, anywhere who said, man, I'm really dating down. She's making less money than me, she's shorter than me, and she can't lift as much as I can. So now the question comes, it's well, Daniel, it's a societal thing, man. It's not just, it's societal. As women, we're told we got to get with the breadwinner and this and that. I get it, but you can't play both. You can't say, Daniel, it's societal. Societally, they've told me I've got to be with a breadwinner, be with a guy who makes more than me, but then you go and get a PhD and you start making $200,000 a year. It gets tricky because you're trying to play both games. You can't start talking about doing certain things equally, but then go out and always expect a guy to pay on the date. And then you say, well, I'm old-fashioned that way. Well, listen, it now becomes tricky because now you get to cherry pick what sorts of things you like old-fashionedly, and maybe he says, you know what, I like to beat up my girlfriends because I'm old-fashioned that way. Do you see the problem with cherry picking certain things? And I know that was an exaggerated response, but I just kind of want to get you this idea of we're in a really weird time shift of dating. And I haven't even touched social media. I mean, that might be a video on its own. But do you see how complex it can get? When you have the psychology, and then you get into your upbringing, right? Are you growing up in a rural community, an urban community? What do your friends think? What do your parents think? How did they grow up? And that's all going to impact you. What do you think about, sleeping with someone at a young age, 16, 17? What do you think about, just sleeping with someone on the night of your marriage, right? So these are so many things that are going to impact your way of life and the way that you think and who you want to spend the rest of your life with if the end goal is a monogamous relationship. But I would definitely recommend that you just take some time and just kind of think about what do you look for in a suitor? Like, what do you look for in a partner? I know this has been very woman focused, but again, gentlemen, let me talk about you for a little bit. Folks, for a lot of guys out there too, man, it's like listen, if you're ugly, chances are you know you're ugly. You know you're not the sexiest flower in the garden, right? Because people tell you, or you don't get those looks that your other good-looking friends get, or whatever. But for a guy, it's also very tough, right? Knowing that those are the expectations of women. Well, if you're out of shape, if you're short, and if you're not making that much money, it is extremely hard to find someone. It is, and it can be extremely lonely. And there's a reason why a man is more likely to kill himself than a woman is. That's a misconception. People think, oh, women are more likely to kill themselves. It's very tricky. Follow me here. A woman is more likely to attempt suicide, and man is more likely to succeed at suicide. We're better than you at killing ourselves. Ha ha. I'm being 100% serious, no cap. A woman, she'll slit her wrist. She'll, do a couple pills. Just feminine and cute. The guy will just take a shotgun. That's that. That's a wrap, right? Anyways, that's neither here nor there. But I'm saying loneliness for men can be really, really tough because you can have an amazing personality, but if you're not making enough money, if you are quite short for a man, if you're like 5 feet tall, and if you're out of weight, you don't have the best shape, it can be really, really tough for you to find a spouse. I mean, in a woman's eyes, you'd have to meet someone who is shorter than you, who makes less money than you do. And if you don't have the most high-end job, that can be really, really tough. The good thing for you gentlemen is you can upgrade yourself and you can actually make yourself more attractive and increase, as Ali Abdel says, your sexual value in the marketplace. I hope I said that correctly. And the way is this: if you're not making that much money, you could end up making more money. It's possible. You can go get a course, go get a diploma, go back to college, university, go to entrepreneur. You could make more money. Making more money makes you more attractive. One, that's possible. I'm gonna stick away from plastic surgery. It's not my thing. Personally, unless it's bad, it's an accident, But for regular people, I would stick away from that. And also it's very costly. So you can increase your money. I'm not saying it's easy to do a 4-year degree, but I'm saying it's possible. It's not like, oh, I'll never be 6'4". Like, we'll get to it. Height, forget about height. If you're 5 feet tall and you think, man, I'm not 6'4", forget about it. Only focus on the things that you can't control to be more attractive. So you make more money, you instantly become more attractive. And before people start saying, oh man, only for those gold diggers, having money is not just, hey, we have a luxury lifestyle. Having money says, hey, if something happens, I can make sure there's a roof over our head. I can make sure that I can pay for our meals. I can make sure that if we have a child, I can support his upbringing and he can do certain things that maybe I wasn't able to do when I was growing up. So it's insurance in a way. Now, there are gold diggers as well, but maybe we'll get to that later. So making money makes you more attractive. If you're short, forget about that. If you are out of shape, so you're overweight or you're underweight, you can exercise, and exercise makes you more attractive. Someone who says, I'm ugly, and there's nothing I could do about it, that's completely BS. You can make more money. There's a plethora of ways to do that. You can work out. You can seriously work out whatever you want to do, whether that's... Anyways, okay, this is, with respect to working out, on a very basic level, let's say you got no specific goal, like you don't want to become a bodybuilder, you don't want to run like Usain Bolt does. Studies show that there are two best forms of working out, and it's not one is greater than the other. They're both equally as important, and they both work the best when you're doing both of them. And that is strength training and cardiovascular training. My recommendation, if you want to get a good mixture, do both. Do some strength training, do some weightlifting. If you're a guy like me who doesn't like going to the gym, no worries, man. Do what I've been doing for 7-8 years now. Push-ups at home. I bought a pull-up bar. Pull-ups, chin-ups all day. I didn't have weights for a while, man. Do you know what I used? Watermelons. I swear to God, lie on your back. Imagine you're bench pressing, watermelon, just up and down. It's better than nothing, right? It's better than nothing. You got to use what you have around you. Don't think you got to go pay all that money for weights necessarily if you don't have them right now. Again, push-ups, there's different variations of push-ups, different sorts of arm exercises, anything heavy. A couple years ago, again, I didn't have dumbbells. I'd use textbooks. You're laughing at me. I'd use heavy textbooks, bicep curls, anything that I could find around the house. Different exercises for the arms, for the shoulders. The gym is really, really good because you can isolate a certain muscle and you can say, okay, man, I'm working on the traps up here. I'm working on the lats here. I'm working on the triceps. So you can break it down in that sense. But some sort of strength training is really good. Super small piece. It increases your metabolic rate. One of the beauties of it is when you've done the workout and you go about your day, your metabolic rate is at a faster pace and you're burning more calories when you're just sitting around and watching movies. So that's absolutely sick. And obviously, cardio, right? Jogging is awesome. I'm a huge fan of sprints. Sprints completely, you want to burn fat, man. Not just burning fat, but also great for your heart. One of the amazing things of doing sprints, for the sake of argument, is when you run really, really fast for 30 seconds and then you stop, your heart doesn't immediately go from fast to slow. It takes it a while to slow down. So even though you've stopped and now you're just walking, you're still reaping the benefits of that sprint. But again, if you're doing sprints, please do a couple jogs in advance, work your way up before putting a lot of pressure on it, because sprints can be pretty intense if you've never done them before. So immediately, if you want to talk about being more attractive for the gentleman, making more money, working out. Now, with regards to the ladies, the making more money thing, I don't know if that would make you more attractive. I'm being 100% honest. Never in my life have I met another man who said, yeah, man, I want my girl to make this much money. I think for the most people, I'm speaking about this, without talking about being in the pornography industry and being a pole dancer. I apologize for all the empowering women out in those fields. But if she works front desk, government, CEO, lawyer, high school teacher, it really doesn't matter. You're making $40,000 a year, making $400,000 a year. It's not the deciding factor. To all the guys that I've talked to, could I be wrong? 100%. That's just my opinion on this matter, on that very statement. So money-wise, I wouldn't recommend it hugely for girls. Again, height, you can't control it, forget about it. Work it out, you absolutely can. Now again, I know that girls, there's this stigma, you don't want to get big and bulky a lot of the times, but you'd be amazed at what strength training can do. And essentially, if you want to stay the same weight, I would still recommend some strength training, because essentially what it does is it just converts that fat that you already have into muscle. So you could have two people that both weigh 130, two women, but one of them has a lower fat percentage than the other, and it shows. So keep that in mind and do your research. And obviously cardio, going out jogs, you want to do some yoga, whatever it is. So definitely, those are a couple ways that you can do it. So money, exercise, eating and sleeping, absolutely. You're going, Daniel, how do eating and sleeping make me more attractive? Folks, when you go to sleep and when you get a good amount of sleep, it has huge impacts on a plethora of things. But if we're just talking about attraction, it really helps with your skin. You want nice skin, sleep really well. There's a correlation between sleeping well and having nice skin. Now again, the reason I said it's correlation and not causation means that I'm not stating, I haven't done enough research to say people who sleep between 7 to 9 hours have clearer skin than people who don't. I haven't done enough research to say that. I'm confident it's somewhere in that world. I know for a fact that there is a relationship there. However, I'm going to get to things like, for example, I know I talked about exercise earlier, right? The reason I'm not super confident about just saying that this 100% causes this is because the other guy might also be working out. And working out actually also does amazing things for your skin, and there's a lower chance that you're gonna get acne. So he might be working out and getting amazing sleep. So it's hard for me to pinpoint and say, well, does he have amazing skin because he works out? Or does he have amazing skin because he's sleeping really well? So be careful. That's one of the things with correlational studies, is they're confounding variables, and you don't know what is causing what exactly. But we know that both of them are good. Exercise not only is it good for losing weight, it's amazing for your skin. So is sleeping. Getting the right amount of sleep is excellent for your skin. And again, folks, you look at someone, obviously, right, you got the sex organs, you got their height, you got their teeth, but skin is so huge. I mean, everybody can have a little bit of acne and that's normal, but there's some pretty great spectrums between having a great load of acne and having just a little bit. Again, that's in your control. Furthermore, folks, did you know that your sleeping dictates when you get hungry? There are certain hormones that get released based on your circadian rhythm. So what happens is, if you're sleeping just patterns all over the place, so let's say you wake up at 8 a.m., you go to sleep at 10 p.m. The next day, you wake up at 11 a.m., you go to sleep at 3 a.m. What that's going to do, it's going to mess around with your brain, and it's going to mess around with your natural circadian rhythm, and you're going to secrete hormones at irregular times, meaning some days you're going to binge eat, meaning some days you're not going to be hungry at all. And guess what? Not eating properly or snacking on things like, I mean, just right, the pizzas, the chips, the really oily and greasy stuff, what do you think that does for your skin? So if you are sleeping well, boom, you're helping out your skin. 2, actually, if you exercise during the day, which is good for your skin, it's going to allow you to sleep better, boom, which is also good for your skin. And if you've been sleeping well, your circadian rhythm's in check, meaning you are less likely to overeat, meaning you're less likely to want to snack on garbage foods as opposed to just eating the healthy foods. And then when you eat foods like avocados and almonds and fatty fish, you know, getting your vegetables in there, Caesar salads, whatever you like, and on top of that, you are drinking lots of water, that's also good for your skin. So skin, again, we talk exercise, eating, sleep, all great for your skin. So we talked about money, we talked about working out, we talked about sleeping, we talked about eating. Man, what else could you do to make yourself more attractive? And again, all those things also apply to women, right? Skin, man, woman, non-binary, whatever is important for everyone. And just eating well, sleeping well, exercising. I mean, those are pretty standard among both of the sexes, I would say for sure. But those are some of the ones that definitely stand out to me. To make a guy more attractive instantly. Another one that I would add is style. Like, if you're someone who thinks that they're quote unquote ugly, I promise you, I bet you anything that I ever have, I'll bet you on this. If you're someone who think you're ugly, start paying attention to your sleep. Take it extremely seriously. Start paying attention to eating less greasy food and drinking more water. Start paying attention to exercising more, to going after something to make more money, going a diploma, whatever, making more money, and changing your style to the style of someone who wears attractive things, whatever that may be, whatever your shtick is. European style, more laid back style. There's a bunch of different, more formal. We're talking pea coats, more polo shirts, you name it. Style can definitely elevate your attractiveness. And if just for the sake of it, we're saying each one of these adds a point to you, well, you got good skin because, you're sleeping well and eating well. Let's say that's 1 point. You're exercising, so now not only have you lost weight, but now you're also defined. That's 2 points. You are making more money, all right? Let's say that's another point. Now you upgraded your style, you're wearing clothing that looks nice, like, whoa, dude, this guy's got a really dope sense of style. That's another point. So I sincerely believe that you could take almost anybody and you do the things that I did, I swear to God, get a haircut, mess around with facial hair, start working out, you get a little bit bigger, get a little bit more defined, the skin is looking good, you start drinking more water. It is absolutely possible. And anyone who says, man, I'm ugly and that's just the way it is, you have accepted your way of being and you don't want to change. There's a huge difference. Hey, Daniel, man, I'm just not as good looking as the other guys. It's like, okay, I'm not gonna lie to you, unlike those girls who lie to you. No, you're beautiful the way you are. It's like, this is another thing I've been thinking about. By the way, I was on fire, wasn't I? About like the sleep and the eating. Like, I thought that was really good. Like, I'm really proud of myself. That was dope. Like, as I was saying it, I was like, God damn, I know quite a bit. Like, at one point, I don't know much because I'm just a baby in this game and I'm just learning more. But I do know some good stuff. I do know some, for 21 years old, huh? Not bad. Not bad at all. What was I gonna say? Right, you do this stuff, you can become more attractive. And anyone who says, hey man, John's just attractive, I can't be like him. It's like, listen, that's not true. If you're talking about height, sure. If you're talking about eye color, you can get contact lenses, but I wouldn't recommend it. But there's certain things that you can change, just do you want to? Do you want to increase your, as I've heard it been called, your sexual value in the marketplace? And you might say, Daniel, I don't care about changing myself for someone else. I'm happy the way I am. And that's great. That's absolutely great. But for someone who does want to look attractive and does want to be, an attractive partner for someone, those are things to consider. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It's not like you're looking for external validation. I think it's just, hey, I want to live with someone someday in a monogamous relationship, if this is you, and I want to make sure that someone knows that I can carry my own weight. What are you interested in? As a woman, what are you interested in? What are you looking for in a man? Oh, a guy to work out? All right, I'll keep that in mind. Or to be decent shape? All right. To make good money? All right, I'll keep it. Yeah, it makes sense. To support the home, to be able to pay, to be able to go on vacations, it makes sense, right? And again, if you're a woman, also think about what is a guy looking for out of his dream? What does he expect? Right? What are the things that does he want me to have a crazy career? No, interesting. And again, it's totally up to your discretion. Having that knowledge of what the other sex looks for in you is like, well, how many things do I already have? How many things do I want to try to become? And how many things, like, no, I don't care that you're interested in that. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm happy with. But anyone who says, hey man, there's no way to be more attractive, I'm ugly and I'll always be ugly, that is a complete lie. You could always upgrade yourself. You could always make yourself look better. And I didn't even mention surgery. I did not even mention surgery. I don't know if I don't want to keep repeating it. I sound like a broken Spotify playlist, but just style. Oh my God. I've seen some people dress. I'm like, dude, you get a haircut? You change the clothes that you wear? Oh my God. Oh my God. You could easily improve, right? You do those little things, you could definitely be more attractive. But again, right, you become in this age where you got to find a suitor and you got to see what their interests are and you got to see if they line up with yours and what are they looking for in a partner and what are you looking for in a partner, right? Now, are you even ready to be in a relationship? That in and of itself is a question. Are you ready to be in a relationship right now? Maybe you're scared. Maybe you don't think it's the right time, but you realize, you know what, the stars will never align. The time will never be right. Whether you're 21, whether you're 25, whether you're 31. It's just, either it happens, and if it doesn't, it'll happen eventually. But it's really important to just kind of look at this transitional period in life where what people are looking for and the roles that they're expected to play are the same, but they're still different. They're the same, but different. She still wants you, or most women expect you to pay on the first date, pick them up, make more money than them. But she expects a lot more equality. She expects the decisions to be 50-50, not just he runs the house because he's the man. So she wants that kind of gender norm to hold the door open for her and do all those things. But on the other hand, she also believes that the relationship is 50-50 and that you guys are both equal to one another. And that you both do things a certain way, and maybe some days she goes to work and then you stay home and take care of the kids, whatever that may be. And I think it's really important to just kind of take a look at that and realize what's happening. Because we have this period where one thing is the norm, and then we have a transition to something else is the norm. And I would argue we're right in that kind of transitional period. And I don't want to say worried, but it's definitely piqued my interest to know that there's more women going to university and colleges than there are men. You could say, well, one factor involved could be women are more agreeable. If someone drops out of university, chances are it's probably a guy. Well, what happens when women get all the top jobs? Well, then women are no longer living in the patriarchy and the feminist rule, and we've got, that's great, that's amazing. But my question is, are you still holding those expectations that you had back in those traditional gender roles? Like if there comes a time when women hold all the top jobs, the CEO, the law firms, the entrepreneurs, when you're making $1 million a year, will you still have that mentality where you go, I gotta date someone who makes more than me? And I wonder how that would turn out. Would you be forced to lower your standards? Would they come out and say there's no more good men? Like, what if you're the CEO of the biggest business in the country and you're trying to find a man who makes as much as you do, and you're not going to? So my question is, does the shift of women being more empowered, does that change the expectations? Do you think, and this is my question to you, do you think we'll get to a point where oh man, I'm just thinking about this right now as these words are coming out of my mouth. Do you think that we'll get to a point where men will start to have expectations of how much money women will make? Do you think we'll get to a point where women will start to expect men to stay home, even if it's not completely like 80-20, but you know how right now you could argue it's like 70-30, probably like 80-20, men expect the women to stay home, take care of the kids. Like, what if it gets to 50-50? And if she's a CEO of her business and she's kicking it, and the dude's got like a regular job working at like a pharmacy, I could definitely expect the woman to have him staying at home. And how would that go? Would she even find that guy attractive if she's making noticeably less? He's making 50 grand a year, she's making 250 grand a year. And if that's the case, well, what's gonna happen to these women? Because they're gonna be forced to, in their own words, date down. That's an interesting thing to think about, huh? If you're a young lady, what do you think about this? Or if you're a guy too, like, how do you think that would impact just the psychology of people and dating and going out? If women looked at dating someone who was, again, shorter than them, didn't make as much money than them, all that stuff that I mentioned earlier, but if they had all the top jobs in the world, it's like, man, it would be really hard to find someone. And it would be both 50%, maybe they're intimidated, and another 50% of, you're not on my level. It's like, but there are very, very, very few people who are, Yeah, that'll be a really interesting way to think about it. Like, how are we going to function as a society and like relationships? Will we get to a place where women have that kind of mentality of men where they go, income doesn't matter. Now that we rule the place, now that we have the top jobs in our society, income doesn't matter anymore. You can make less than me and it's okay. I've got no idea. This is my question to you folks. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support. If you're watching this on YouTube, every subscribe, every like, I really appreciate it. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, thank you very much. It's dope to hear that you're listening. I'm glad that you are enjoying. I promise you I will have some guests on in the near future. We'll see where that goes. But besides then, have an absolutely fantastic day. Peace out.